What is going on, everybody? This is Mike Hughes, aka The Shy Kid, and you are listening to The Shy Kid Podcast, presented by iHeartRadio's very own Give Us a Shot network. So make sure you give us a like, give us a follow if you haven't already. If you're already tired of my voice, don't worry. We have so many other amazing people and amazing shows on this network. So make sure you give us a like and subscribe. I'm only saying it once, don't like saying it twice. But with that being said, man, we got an amazing show for you guys tonight. If you haven't checked out the interview already, we had Chase Watkins, absolute dog, on the show the other day, telling his story, just breaking down who he is. You can check out his merch right now on our website. We have the link in the bio below. Obviously, it is his website, but you can find the link right under the episode. So make sure you check that out. But with that being said, man, let's get into today's guest. We got a Texas boy. We got an absolute dog, a monster, a minor league Cubs pitcher of the year, just added to the resume. Love to see it. We have right-handed pitcher Brandon Birdsell joining the show today. Brandon, how are you, baby?
I'm good. How you doing?
Man, we're doing it, man. We're doing it.
Appreciate you having me on.
Appreciate you being here, man. I know, you just got a little famous the other day, so I was like, oh man, did we miss it? Did we miss the opportunity? No, I'm playing.
No.
Man, before anything, man, take me through what's the last couple of weeks been like for you? Obviously, it's off season time. Got the World Series going on. Have you been able to check any of that out?
Yep. Pretty much just working out, throwing on my days, and then go play golf here and there, and then been watching the World Series that night. And I've pretty much been watching all the playoff games and stuff. It's been a good playoff
For sure.
this year, and a lot of exciting games. So yeah, we've just been hanging out, enjoying the downtime.
For sure. You're the third guy we've had on a row saying he's spending his whole offseason playing golf. Not the whole offseason, but I commend it. I love it. I'm still trying to, as a Chicagoan, I think especially because there's snow on the ground for about 8 months out of the year,
Yeah.
pretty much. I'm trying to get into golf. I'm trying to figure it out. I'm like, like all these guys keep telling me golf, golf, golf. For you, man, what got you into that?
Um, I would always go. I played with my dad when I was a young kid, and then when I was probably in eighth grade, for me, I couldn't separate the golf swing and the baseball swing, so I had
That's
quit playing golf. And then over my freshman year of college, we went to the range, and man, I could not hit the ball. My legs were so muddy because I was just hitting the ground with the driver. And then over COVID, me and my brother, we started going to the driving range. We just hit balls, and then we never even thought about playing. And then one day I was like, "Hey, what if we actually went and played?" And he's like, "Yeah, why not?" And then so we went and played, and man, I've been hooked since.
For sure, for sure. I actually, it was a little, I know no one's here to hear my story, but it's kind of like the hard part for me was like deciphering like baseball versus golf. I remember me
Yeah,
and my boy went to Top Golf. It was like a whole group of us. And I can't hit a lick. Like, so I'm just like, man, hey, you want to see who can hit the back of the net? Like, and you've been have you ever been to Top
yeah,
Golf? Like, you know how far back that
yeah.
is. So we're just like at this point, everyone else is playing for like stats and stuff, and me and my boy are just ripping it as far as possible. And then one ends up going all the way. I didn't hit this one, but my boy ended up hitting it over the net, goes onto a highway. And then they were like, yeah, you got to go. You're banned for a year. And I was like, oh, we're like 20. Well, I'm like,
Man,
oh,
that's their fault. The net should have been higher.
that's what I'm saying. And honestly, I wish I could tell that story and say it was me that did it, but I did not. I hit it to the wall. I didn't hit it over the wall. Absolute moonshot. Definitely my favorite Top Golf experience of all time. But we're allowed back in there. The band is up, I'd
There you
imagine.
go.
So maybe we'll make another appearance at Top Golf, see if they
Yeah,
notice. But
tell them they got to raise the nets.
that's a you problem, brother. It's not
Yeah,
a me problem
exactly.
at all. I saw Mike Trout do it and they praised him for it. I do it, we get banned. That's
That's
inconsistency.
unreal.
Inconsistency. But man, I want to talk to you, man. Growing up in Texas, can you kind of take me through before anything Texas baseball? Because we had Chase Watkins on here the other day. He spent a lot of time in Florida, grew up in California. He was telling me the top three baseball states. He said it's California, Florida, and Texas. Where do you put Texas right now as it ranks in baseball talent?
Oh man, it's so hard now, like being so far out of the high school game. But honestly, on a lot of the teams I've been on in pro ball, we've had a lot of people from Texas. I think this year when we ended in AAA, we had 6 or 7 guys reside in Texas.
Mm,
I mean, growing up, man, it was always competitive. You can always go to the local tournaments and play competitive baseball, and then we'd go down to Georgia and go play and whatnot. But I mean, for the most, I remember my first experience playing against really good players, and it was a team called the Banditos, and they had like Jordan Groshans, Nick Northcutt, Adam Klopfenstein. They had probably 10 guys go play D1 ball out of that team, and I was just playing for my little local team, with my dad's or my coach, and
Mhm.
and I went and I pitched and I played pretty well, and that was the first time really getting recognized from scouts. I mean, we're in ninth grade at this point, and these
Yeah.
guys are already getting college looks and whatnot. They're like little local colleges, but
Were
no,
you a
it's fun.
my bad. Were you a big like travel ball guy, or were you really just playing in high school?
I played travel ball. Yeah,
Yeah,
I played pretty much from when I was 12 on until my senior year of high school. I played travel ball. But I would say we kept it pretty cool. I played on my little local team, my little local travel ball team till I was probably 16, and then I went and played for the Evil Shield Canes my last summer before my senior year.
for sure, for sure. Yeah, because I wanted to ask because I know some guys it's either yeah I didn't care about travel ball or yeah I was on like 12 teams in one summer and it's like damn bro like a tournament every single weekend you and
Yeah, it's
there's no life outside of it but it kind of just like breaking that down like I feel like there was such different levels versus travel ball versus your high school team. Like at least for me, like I ain't gonna lie, like our high school baseball team was shit. I think in 4 years I won a total of like 5 games. And then I ended up going back and assistant coaching with my old head coach, and it's like, man, we won a playoff game, and I was like, oh my god, like this is like everything, like we
right.
always won. I'm like, now we're good when I leave. But there was such a difference between like the brothers you have on travel ball versus high school. Can you kind of take me through what your high school experience was, not only just as a player, but as a kid growing up? Like, what was that experience like?
High school was fun, man. My most fun year was probably my senior year. We had a great group of guys. A lot of my best friends played on that team, and actually 3 guys in my wedding played on my high school baseball team. And uh, I I'm honestly from I had 2 sides of travel ball. So when I played on my local team, that was a blast, man. I loved it so much. It was so much fun just wanting to win and play with your best friends. And then
Hmm.
when I played with the USU Canes, we would go and travel and to Georgia and Arizona, and um, you didn't build as great of a bond because you didn't see where you weren't with each other all the time. My local team, we practiced twice a week, and then we were playing every other weekend, and so we just played so much with each other, and we played. I was with that same core group of guys for probably 4 years, and so summer after summer, man, we just kept growing closer and closer. It was awesome. Honestly, in high school, we weren't the greatest. We never made playoffs. I went to 2 different high schools, and at both high schools, we never made playoffs. So I never got to experience Texas high school playoff baseball. Um, and then once I was committed to Texas A&M, that was pretty much you get all the chirps and
Yeah.
everything like that, and everyone expects you always expects you to be the best player on the field and whatnot. But overall, man, I had a great experience.
For sure, for sure. And you kind of mentioned your family a little bit earlier. Are there any other athletes in the family? And I'm going to give you this one, and I want an honest answer. Best athlete in the family, whether it's your second cousin, your grandma, whoever it is. Brandon, would you say you're the best athlete in the family?
Yeah, I am. We didn't have any other. My dad played. I think he said he played maybe 2 semesters of college baseball. At a school called Dana College. I
Mhm.
think he said it was the D3. But my dad actually um, he had an overall record of like 54-6 in Iowa wrestling. So he's a pretty good wrestler. He ran track, he played football, he played baseball, played basketball. He did all of it. I'd say my dad is definitely a close second.
For sure, for sure. That's absolutely dope. And I love the tie because Iowa's back in the picture now, so that's really cool. But we kind of break down. This is like the P's and Q's of the episode, but recruiting is so different nowadays. I feel like guys aren't even going out there to watch guys. They're just looking up stats and handing people offers for the majority. What was recruitment like, especially with Texas A&M for you, and how early did that kind of occur? Because I know you said earlier, like ninth grade, guys are getting offers in your travel
Yeah.
ball league. What was communication like for you? And obviously, it's a Texas boy in the building, so like, how early were you in committing?
So my ninth grade summer, or my the summer after my freshman year of high school, I went down to a little camp at Texas A&M, and after that camp, actually Grayson Rodriguez, if you know him, well, he was at that camp too, and after the camp, or yeah, after the camp, the coach at the time pulled me aside and was like, "Hey, we want to." We want to offer you.
Mm,
But I didn't really understand the concept of it at the time. I didn't really know much about recruiting. And then on the way home, I told my dad that my dad was elsewhere. He wasn't there for whatever reason. And he was like, I told him that what they wanted to offer me. He's like, no, they didn't. And then I'm like, no, seriously, they that's what they said. And he goes, you're joking. And so he had to call them and ask if I was making it up or whatnot.
mm,
But after that, I went to my travel team. We played at I think it was a Labor Day weekend tournament at Oklahoma University, and then that was my first real official offer from the coach at the time. I felt kind of pressured, so I ended up committing there. I was committed there for maybe a month or two, and then I decommitted, and because I didn't really want to go there,
right.
and then
Texas
pretty
Tech
much from
would would
there.
would never pressure you, brother. You know what I mean?
No, them no. That I love them. They're
A&M,
great. But
boss
then,
hog.
so then after that, I pretty much knew I wanted to go to A&M. And M.
Mm,
And once we opened up the commitment, was in talks with them for a couple months and ended up committing there right in the middle of my sophomore year of high school baseball.
for sure. For sure. Now the decommitment thing, I kind of like want that opinion on for you. Like, do you believe? Because I know a lot of people feel differently. I think it's so important for a player to be happy and a player to be in a place to where they feel comfortable. But other people believe, hey man, once you commit, you commit. Where are
Right.
you as it stands to not only the transfer portal now in college baseball, but really just giving kids an opportunity to kind of go where they want to go. Like they could leave at any point, at any time, in any year, as many times as they want.
Yeah, it definitely has two sides to it. I think it's great when you're at a smaller school and say you're just playing really well, you've developed, and you got an opportunity to go play at a bigger school and get in front of
Mm,
scouts and give yourself the best opportunity to play professional baseball. That's awesome. But then when you've also got on the other side of things, you've got guys just transferring to transfer. You got guys. Now I know I went to three different schools, but I got paid $0
of
to
course.
transfer. But you got guys going school to school to school to school year after year, either to get more money or I don't know. There's definitely two sides to it, but
Yeah.
um, man, I think honestly that recruiting and stuff, there should definitely be a age limit on that because I mean, you look at my situation, I committed way too early,
Yeah.
and it wasn't the right fit, and you've got a lot of guys who will commit to the first or second school that offer them, and then they end up, not liking it, and then they decommit, and so it's just kind of, I think if you waited till kids are a little bit more mature and knew what they wanted, then you'd have a lot less of the decommitting part.
No, for sure. And I think like a big thing for me, like, we've had Paul Skeens on the show with my guy Jim Cross, Randy, and DB. And, my big thing about Paul is what a lot of people don't understand. I don't know if you saw the new LSU show that came out kind of talking about the NIL deals with Angel Reese and everybody else. Paul didn't take a dime. And I think that was like the craziest thing for me is like, and when we talk about a guy like Paul Skeens, he went to LSU because he wanted to go to LSU.
Yeah.
And I think Paul honestly honestly, at that point, probably could have went anywhere he wanted. I'm a Volunteers fan, so would have loved Paul in Tennessee. Probably would have won it all a lot more by now. But I think in all seriousness, man, like it's really important to kind of just understand why you're doing what you're doing, and
Right.
there's such a bigger purpose to, okay, well, who over here is going to help me develop into who I want to be. And why I bring that up is because in 2022, I mean, I'm gonna be honest, you're a fucking animal. Like you're doing it. You got 86 innings pitched and over 100 Ks on the board. Who was someone for you at Texas Tech that really helped you develop into who you were prior to the draft?
So I've got three guys. My first guy was my pitching coach at Sanjak. His name was Woody Williams. He's the pitching coach now for Houston. He was at UT and now he's at Houston. He was kind of the first guy that you know, helped me develop as a pitcher and a person, and not even necessarily from a lot of mechanical standpoints. So it was a lot of like in between the years type of deal, and just helping me believe in myself because when I was coming from A&M, man, I wasn't very good. So I didn't really know who I was as a pitcher, and then when I got to Texas Tech, Matt Gardner and Ray Hayward, both of the pitching guys there, man, they were so great. They worked with everybody, and man, they helped me find some grips and a lot of physical cues, mental cues, a lot of things to kind of just help me go out there and you know just compete and pitch.
No, for sure, for sure. Now, when you kind of have a season like you did, like I'm just curious on your standpoint, like what are you thinking at the end of 2022? Like, are you thinking, yeah, we're done, we're going to the draft, or was there an idea of, hey, maybe I'm going to return next year?
No, I never was going to return. I knew I was. I knew I wanted to get drafted. I didn't know where I would go.
Mm,
I had some surgeries and stuff, so I knew that would hurt my status in the draft. But I knew I had to go because it was already my fourth year, and I needed to get my professional career started because I actually got drafted, after my junior year, but I was
mm,
hurt half of the year, and I I didn't want to get drafted in the first place. Had some miscommunications with you know my old agent and teams and whatnot, and so I ended up getting drafted. But I went back, and I went back for $0. That was the first year NIL, and there was no NIL package. I just went back for $0.
so Brandon didn't pull up to spring training in a new whip, is out of nowhere coming back and
Nah,
return it now.
nah, not like my teammate Connor Nolan.
Oh man,
Getting
oh
getting him a free
man.
truck, getting him a
We
free truck at Arkansas.
We've had Connor on the show for sure. Connor's dope. Connor's dope, man. It's crazy when you kind of see that stuff happen. Like I'm driving a 2002, bro, pulling up the Iowa Cup games, just doing media stuff, and I'm like, I see some of these whips in the parking lot, and I'm like, damn, like who is it?
Yeah.
It's Pico Armstrong's whip, and I'm like, all right, well that makes sense,
Yeah,
But no,
absolutely.
man, that's great. And I kind of just for like a friendly reminder, I remember you got drafted the year prior. But what round did you get drafted in, if you remember?
I want to say it was the 11th.
So the 11th, you go from the 11th to the 5th. That's a pretty crazy jump, especially like when we talk about the financials. It's a pretty crazy jump. So for you, man, looking back on it, how important was that 2022 season for you in college? And what do you think you changed the most going from 2021 to 2022 to have such a great season? Other than just, like obviously you were healthy for the majority of it.
Mm. I mean, I've always been pretty strong in the weight room, but man, my strength coaches up at Tech, man, I stayed up there that whole summer and was working out, 4 to 5 times a week, and when I got hurt, I kind of moped around for a couple of days, but then after that, I was like, man, if I'm coming back, I gotta be ready. I gotta stay healthy because I knew coming back, if I didn't stay healthy, I wasn't going to get drafted.
For sure.
So we did a lot of work in the weight room. Um, got stronger, a little bit more stable, and then really, man, it was all God's blessing after that. Just keeping me healthy and keeping me healthy through these first two professional seasons.
For sure, for sure. Now, when we talk about draft day, obviously there was miscommunications with your former agent the first go around, that you kind of brought up. this go around, what were the communications like, not only with the Chicago Cubs, but other teams that might have been interested in you, like prior to the draft? Because a lot of guys just find out that day, hey, we're drafting you, boom, and that's it. After like one meeting prior,
Right.
how many conversations did you really have with the Cubs organization?
None.
None.
I would talk. I talked with the area scout.
Mm,
I think he talked to me maybe pre-draft. We still talk here and there too. He's still in the West Texas area, so if I'm ever in the area and he's in the area, we always catch up. But uh, I talked to him both my years at Texas Tech, and really, honestly, before the draft, I didn't ever think much about the Cubs. Um,
no one does. It's okay. It's okay.
but now that I'm in the organization, I've been to Wrigley, man. It's awesome.
For sure, for sure. Now drafted 143rd overall, fifth round, 2022 draft. Where were you, man? Because we always talk about Paul Skeens all over TV, number one overall pick. Caleb Williams, number one overall pick. We see it probably 2 weeks prior, all the way until training camp. We see them every single day in the spotlight. Fifth round pick, man. Where were you when you got the call? Who'd you have around you?
I had my wife, a couple of her friends, my family, and her family. And her grandparents live in Lubbock, and we were still in Lubbock. Um, and so we were at their house in their backyard
Mm,
watching it and just waiting. Really, man, I'm an emotional person. My family's emotional. My wife is emotional, and so man, when I got the call, I my agent texted me like maybe 10 seconds before they announced it. And so I knew whenever the Chicago Cubs came up, I was getting picked. But man, it was excitement. It was joy. I started crying. Everyone started crying, but it was a good time.
Now, did you make them wait, or did you tell them once you got the text?
I made them wait.
You made them wait. I
Yeah.
love that. I love that because a lot of guys, like I think, like for me, I don't think I could compose myself. I think I like you would know I just got
Yeah.
drafted. So
I was
I think
trying.
that's incredible, bro. That's incredible. But I do want to ask because I've listened to an interview of you before. I believe it was before the draft. At what point did you get married? Because I remember you were saying, I believe this was 21 or 22 in an interview. It went from fiance to wife very quickly. So when did that all happen?
So my original plan was to get drafted after my junior year,
Hmm.
and I was having a pretty decent season at the time, and so my plan was to get drafted, and I was going to propose after uh, that year or after the draft, and then um, my father-in-law helped me out with the ring, and so when I got hurt and I was going to go back, I wanted to still go through with the proposal, so we got engaged after my junior year of college, and then that next winter at post draft in 2022 or no 2023. That's when we got married.
Whew.
So we were engaged for a year and a half, and then we've been married for almost 2 years now.
I love that. I love that. Now, where is this a high school sweetheart? Is this someone you met in college? Like how did this happen? Because I'm
Nah,
I'm
yeah.
24. Like I only got a girl like that. You know what I mean? Like you're
What
you're this
you can't
short.
imagine having a kid right now?
No, for sure. Like I got a niece and a nephew, but my favorite part about being an uncle is you always get to give them back. You know what I
Oh
mean?
yeah,
Like oh yeah, I had enough today. Like you go ahead
I'm
deal with
good. Here you
that.
go. Y'all can
Yeah.
take care of your kid.
When they're sick, I'm like, yeah, I'll see y'all next week. I'm not trying to catch none of that. So,
Right.
but how did you meet your wife?
We met at a bar in Lubbock, and pretty much from then on out, we started hanging out every day, and then we started dating, and then never looked back.
That's incredible. That's incredible. This man is storybook. What are you talking about? This man's doing it. But man, talking about just the Cubs organization as a whole right now. Obviously, I was in shambles. You could see me in the bleachers every single year, interviewing fans and getting our hearts ripped out. But the tables are turning. We got some things spinning right now. First, I want to ask you a question that's completely unrelated to pitching. How legit are these bats in Iowa? Because I'll turn on the Chicago Cubs game and we'll get a big fat donut over 9 innings. We won't score any runs. We'll have 2 hits. And then I look up the Iowa Cubs stats. And oh, yeah, here's a little 20 ball. Oh, yeah, by the way, Owen Casey's dog walking the league again. Oh,
Yeah,
by the
he's
way, Moises is literally the next coming Yadier Molina. Like, how legit are these guys? You got a chance to spend some time with them.
there's not a lot of gaps in that lineup. Our lineup at the end of the year, man, that's a tough lineup to face. OC hit really well all year. Bally was really good all year. Matt Shaw, James Triantos, Kevin Alcantara. I mean, you can just go down the list.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, you got the Jaguar, you got James Triantos in there, you got a bunch of people that I think like are just big names that, even the smaller names, like let's not it's not a smaller name, but BJ Murray was in the All-Star Futures game just a year ago, and I
Yeah.
understand like position wise, there's other guys climbing up at the same position as him, but I mean, they're just so deep at so many positions. Now, I do want to ask you a question. It's a little biased and you could plead the fifth and we can move on if you don't. Who's that guy in Iowa right now, other than yourself, that you think has an opportunity to make that opening day lineup next year?
Like pitcher or hitter?
Hitter.
Hitter. I mean, I everyone talks about Owen Casey, and then but honestly, I'd say probably Matt Shaw.
Yeah.
I think he's got a legit chance. Um, yeah,
No, for sure, for sure. I wanted to go pitcher, but everybody just, it was just such a frustrating year for so many people. Like Cade had a frustrating year with injury bugs. There's just been a lot going on, but getting into your experience, your journey as a Cub from rookie ball on, kind of breaking down, kind of like we talked about before with college. Who was somebody that's really helped you along the way get to where you are now from start to finish in the Cubs org?
really the whole pitching staff, man, has been so good. My pitching coach in South Bend, Clayton Mortensen, man, he was awesome. And then in Tennessee, we had Jamie Vermilia, and he was awesome. Uh, TC, our guy in Iowa, he was great, and all the assistant guys, Andrew Betcher, Henry Hack, and Andrew Reeder, man, they're all great.
For sure.
They work with you so well, and they got their little iPad and they break it down and tell you how to read the iPad and whatnot, and what your pitches look like when they're good, what they look like when they're not so good, and yeah, man, it's every single day in day out, just working with those guys.
For sure, for sure. Now, breaking down 2024 as a whole, man, I mean, it was a great year for you. Obviously, Cubs minor league pitcher of the year. You get called up to AAA. Before we get into one of the greatest stories I've ever heard, um, really just that transition, really what we saw from you. I love kind of breaking down, the home runs you allowed in AA versus AAA. You cut it in half pretty much. It
Mm.
went from 10 to 4. What was the change for you, especially upgrading to the AAA, that really allowed you to prevent the ball from leaving the yard?
Honestly, I would say really just learning how to command the fastball. When I was in Double A, a lot of almost all my fastballs were up. But when I got to AAA, nobody was swinging at the high heater. So I had to figure out ways to get them to start swinging at the high heater, my out pitch. So then we started going like establishing down and away.
Mm,
When you establish down and away, now you got to get the hitter. The hitter's got to respect down and away, and you can't cover up too. And so it's that, and then pitching in, knowing when to pitch into hitters, and all sorts of stuff. So,
for
and then
sure.
also, of course, the addition to my cutter was
Hmm.
definitely a big piece in keeping hitters off balance.
For sure. Now, I did kind of want to ask you about that because obviously the slider was such a huge part for you in college. You kind of break, I believe, what was it in college? It was fastball, changeup, slider, and was there a curveball in there?
Yeah,
There
had a
was a
curveball.
curveball in there. And it was always hard for me to tell because they look
Yeah.
like, man, your shit is disgusting. But that's a whole different conversation. But it's definitely something for me where we're watching guys slowly add to their repertoire. How important was adding a cutter? Was that your idea or did they approach that with you?
It was my idea, and then they worked with me on it. So we at the time we had a guy named Dan Straley. who threw a cutter, and it was really we played St. Paul Saints, and almost every single one of those guys were throwing cutters, and then blowing guys up with 95-mile-per-hour heaters up. And so I was like, you know what, that's pretty cool. And at the time, I only had fastball, slider, changeup,
For
and
sure.
I was predominantly fastball slider. So I was a two pitch guy, and my slider got slower as the year went on. And so I was like, man, I need something that's hard. And so I was like, but I don't want to change my slider,
Mhm.
and I don't want to manipulate that grip. And so saw these guys having success with the cutter. I was like, hey, can I just try throwing a cutter? And like, you can do whatever you want. And then so they showed me a grip, and I throw it just like a fastball. And whenever I throw it down, it has depth. Whenever I throw it up, it kind of stays up. And so there's times where you look at the scatter plot of my cutter, and it was like, one's here, one's here, one's here, one's here, one's here, one's here.
We might have lost Brandon for just a couple seconds, but hopefully we'll get him back very soon. But it is crazy when we kind of talk about that. And oh, we got him back. We don't got to talk about nothing. Brandon, we got you
Am I
back,
back?
brother. Yeah, yeah, you're back.
Am I showing on your screen?
Yeah, 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 you're good.
Okay. And a lot. I remember and early on, it was like considered inconsistent,
Hmm.
but then it's like you've got three different shapes on one pitch that the hitter's got to worry about. And then I remember I had a span where the shape of my cutter was super consistent,
Hmm.
and then it was getting hammered. So it was like, well, do you want the them all to look the same, or like do you want three different shapes with one pitch? So
Yeah. Now for you, like I know there's the Yu Darvishes of the world who have like 11 pitches that they really use, but like 20 that they're trying out in spring training. Like how
yeah.
many pitches do you want by let's say by the time you're in the bigs, because obviously that could be at any point in time, but like where would you feel comfortable ending your arsenal? Is there still a couple pitches that you kind of want to add?
I'd say it's just really honing in on the changeup. Other than
Mhm.
that, I'm not too concerned with trying to add another pitch. I think when I would try and do that is maybe if I'm just having a really hard time getting guys out.
Mhm.
Um, I think it's good to keep things simple.
Yeah.
So finding out what works best for you and keeping it just like that.
For sure, for sure. Now things were working pretty well for you, we'd say in Double A. Obviously having a great year and really just not knowing what opportunities you could have gotten, especially with that Cubs rotation in the bigs that was kind of in and out with injuries the majority of the year. You get the call up to Iowa, and if you want to share that story about what that experience was like for you, those 48 to 72 hours.
Yeah, absolutely. So my wife was 39 weeks pregnant at the time, and she was scheduled to have an induction. We had that 2 week stretch where
Mhm.
we played 12 games straight. So we played on that normal off day, that Monday, and I pitched on that Monday, and I pitched well. That was my last start in Double A. I went 7 innings, 6 and 2/3, no hitter. Well, then my old teammate Nick Northcutt hit a homer, and then I got the last guy out, and then so the induction ended up falling through. We weren't able to get it done. And so then we're driving home that night. My coach calls me and say, "Hey, you got to come back up." I'm like, "Okay." So I tell my wife and my mother-in-law who's with us at the time, I was like, "Okay, just letting y'all know I'm probably getting called up." And they're a little more anxious than I am. And so I was just telling them, like, "All right, well, what are we going to do if this is it?" And then so they start talking. Sure enough, I was getting promoted. Next day, so we started packing up the apartment that night. Next day, I'm at the ballpark. I'm doing my normal post game routine. I'm doing my sprints, and my trainer comes running out to me, and he was my emergency guy in case she couldn't contact me.
Yeah.
So she had texted him she was going into labor. So he comes out running saying your wife's going into labor. And then as I was running out, I was just in shock. As I was going out, the whole team, they were all out there. They were cheering and clapping for me and whatnot. So that was fun. And then we ended up having him that night. And I say she did. And
Moral support, you were there. You
yeah,
were
moral
there.
support. she had him that night, and then the next couple of days, I was going up to the ballpark to throw, and then coming back, and um, then they went to Chattanooga for the 3 games. We played 3 games at home, 3 games away. I had to still throw and play and throw bullpen to stay ready because my first start. They told me on Monday, and then they're like, "Well, your first start's not going to be till Wednesday next week in Nashville." I'm like, "Okay." So I drove up to Chattanooga, threw bullpen, stayed the night, drove back, packed the car up, drove 12 hours to Iowa, hopped on the flight the next day to Nashville. And keep in mind, at the time, there was no apartments available. So I was in the team hotel, and the garage was on the opposite side of our hotel room. So I had that little cart buggy thing, and
Yeah.
I made probably 15 trips all throughout the hotel, dragging our stuff into the hotel room. I just dumped it all, got on the flight the next day, and then her parents drove her and the baby out to Nashville, like 2.5 hour drive from Knoxville. And then we were in the hotel that first week. I mean, he's like he's like 4 or 5 days old at the time,
Mhm.
and so we're in the hotel with the newborn for a week, and then I've got my first AAA start, probably my most important start at the time. Um, and then after the series, we were having trouble because we were going to get a rental car and just drive back to Iowa. I don't have a credit card, and I apparently when you use a debit card,
Yeah. Me
you use a
neither.
debit card, you got to have a returning flight to get a rental car.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know this, so I went to all nine of those places at the airport. All told me that, and so then I'm like, man, I don't know what to do. And so we were looking for flights, and then we were just going to ride the team bus back, but they didn't want the liability. I get it of the baby, so then we just got a flight. We flew back. We get back. We get into the hotel, get everything settled, sleep, and then the next day they say an apartment opened up, so I had to haul everything back into the car through the hotel, and then we ended up moving everything in that day.
For
So
sure.
it was a pretty hectic 14 days or so.
That's insane. That's now. Let's say 14 days. How many hours of sleep you think you got in those days?
Oh man, 14.
That's just how it is, man. That's so dope. That's so dope, man. It's like one of those stories. Like I couldn't believe it when you were saying it earlier, and I think like, first of all, I think the league should commend you, and I think my man should definitely get a bonus for the work he was putting in those 14 days. Like to be able to go out there and dominate and just try to be the best version of yourself in some of the most crucial points of your career at that point. It's definitely nerve wracking, and I feel like, you talk about, how deep your family ties are, and to be able to have that support, I feel like probably definitely did help a lot. For you, man, like kind of just like where you are right now, like looking back on that season, like where do you think that ranks, like in life, in your whole, like everything that's gone on so far for you throughout your career?
Yeah, no, it was definitely a great year. I try not to make it more than what it is. I try to, be like, well, when I pitch good, that's kind of my job. It's what I'm supposed to do.
Mm,
Um, really, this whole season was just there's so many things that happened, and there's a lot of really good memories and memorable things that definitely happened throughout this last year.
for sure.
Definitely, that story I just told is it's definitely like number one.
For sure, I think that one might be number one for a very long
He
time.
he is going to have quite the story to tell to his friends.
For
I mean,
sure.
he's got his Tennessee birth certificate. He lived in Iowa for about a month and a half. He's been on, I think, 7 or 8 flights, and he's been to 8 states already.
Yeah, he might be. Yeah, he's been to more states than I've been to states. Like that's
Yeah,
in 8 days. You know what I mean? Like, it's
I know
crazy.
it is crazy.
For sure, for sure. Now, before we get you out of here, man, kind of breaking down what you want to go into 2025 with. Obviously the easy answer is you want to be in the show. But what kind of player do you want to be going into next year? What's something you want to add this off season, whether that's nutrition, whether that's, obviously we talked about simplifying the cutter, kind of make that a little bit more easier for you. What's your main priority?
I would say right now is definitely that fourth pitch, that changeup.
Mm,
Other than that, just go in and keep throwing strikes, keep getting hitters out, and just let the cards fall where they may.
Without a doubt, without a doubt, bro. Brandon, we appreciate you being here, man. Appreciate you taking the time, sharing those stories. We are rooting for you the entire way. Hopefully, we can have you on sometime very soon to kind of just keep up to date with everything you got going on, man.
I appreciate you having me on. Thank you.
Appreciate you, man. If you guys want to find out more about Brandon, check him out right now on Instagram and all social media platforms. You can always check out Iowa Cubs baseball. Hopefully, you'll be seeing him a lot more on Marquee with the Chicago Cubs. Until then, man, you can check him out on the Shy Kid podcast or on iHeartRadio's very own Give Us a Shot network. So make sure you give us a like, give us a follow if you haven't already. We're going to be having a lot more people on very soon. Jackson Wiggins, Caleb Knight, so many others. It's going to be a lot of fun. Until then, we'll check you guys out later. Peace.
Give them a shot to do what?